Well, thank you. Thank you, Victoria, for organizing it, for putting together the agenda, and for running the Zoom meeting today and letting people in. I appreciate that. So I'm Kathleen Beckman. I'm chair of the Pinellas County Continuum of Care. This is all volunteer as far as participation here. And we have a lead organization of the HLA, and the CEO is Daisy Correa, who is here. So I'm glad Daisy's here. If you want to wave, can Victoria, can you switch to the gallery view so we can kind of see people as we go through an introduction? Our time is brief today, but part of our time is to discuss how we want to run the meetings and the length of the meetings. And so we do have a lot to get through. I hope you are able to get the agenda and read through some of the attachments. I'm just going to make one brief statement right now. My home, I'm working from home here. We don't have any air conditioning. We haven't had it for 2 days. And the people are supposed to arrive sometime today, and I don't have a time yet. So if I get a knock on the door, I might need to step out real quick and just let them in. So for our welcome today, I'd like for people to just go around and introduce yourself. You can say what organization you're with, but I'd like you to share two small pieces of information if you could. So your name, what organization you're with, why are you here, as far as what is it that you most care about? I know we are all here to reduce and prevent homelessness, but is there any other particular reason? And then if you could talk about or mention how much time you might have, like per week or per month, to dedicate to this committee. Just a ballpark figure, just a general idea. That'd be great. So introduce yourself, organization, what's most important to you, and any time kind of ability for you. So Victoria, I still can't see the whole gallery, but do you want to call on people or because I can't see everybody?
I can do that. I'll go ahead. I'll start so that other folks don't feel put on the spot. My name is Victoria Kelly. My pronouns are she, her. I am the Senior Manager of Organizational Advancement and Strategy here at the HLA. And I am excited that we are having these advocacy committee meetings because there are a lot of things going on in our country, in our state, and in our community that are impacting the most vulnerable members of our community, but also our entire community, like this anti-camping law that's not just going to impact people who are unsheltered. So I'm really excited to put forth some work, some effort outside of our task forces and stuff to help our community thrive. And I will go ahead, I will popcorn it over to Sam.
Good morning. My name is Sam Picard. I'm on the CoC board. I work for Baycare Health System, and I do community partnerships around behavioral health. Honestly, I'm most interested in how we can address funding for homeless services and how we can think about advocacy. I can't be on this committee as a general rule, but I think I can be helpful in terms of helping think about how we have the conversation and how we approach advocacy at the beginning. My job at Baycare is now all community, but it used to be half government relations. So I have some experience in working directly with stakeholders on advocacy issues.
Fantastic. Did you want to pass it off to somebody, Sam? Or can you see everybody?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I would love to pass it over to school board member Edmund.
Good morning. I am just excited about the ability to have an advocacy committee and how, knowing some of the hurdles that unhoused people face, we really do have an opportunity. A simple opportunity is asking municipalities to bypass or provide another method or way that buildings or portables that were grandfathered in through the school district to meet code can meet their city code, because that would be one of the challenges that agencies would face if they were to accept portables from the school district, and that would be bringing them up to code because the school system has it grandfathered in that they can use those portables. And then when we look at policy and laws, just like the anti-camping law, how can we support the unhoused people, because more laws like this are going to come. So just getting ahead of things so we're proactive instead of reactive would be great on my end. So thank you.
Thank you, school board member. All right, I will pass it to Anne Marie.
Morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Anne Marie Winter, aging of Pasco Pinellas. We are the planning, coordinating, and funding body for federal and state home and community-based services to help seniors, adults with disabilities, and their caregivers age in place. So I want to, my expectations really for this group are, so to me, advocacy is three things, right? It's advocating for legislation, for funding, and for policy changes at the local, state, and federal level. And I think that this group initiating, the CoC board initiating an advocacy committee is really important because we're really at a crossroads in our communities as it relates to those individuals that are experiencing being unhoused. So the article that appeared in the Tampa Bay Times recently, I think is a great example of advocacy, raising awareness, helping policymakers who read the paper near and far to understand what the issues are and what we as a community want to do. Finally, the Florida Coalition to End Homelessness and the area agencies on aging share the same lobbyist pinpoint results. And we work very closely with our lobbyist on issues of policy, legislation, and funding. And so I'm hoping there's an opportunity to include that lobbyist and that firm at some point in this group to help really guide potential LBRs, legislative budget requests, how we respond to things like the terrible bill that came into law. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Oh, and I would say like 5 hours a week in a good week.
Wow.
In a good week, and 0 hours in a bad week.
All good.
But yeah, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to my boss, Miss Daisy Correa.
Good morning, everybody. Daisy Correa, CEO of the Homeless Leadership Alliance. I'm really looking forward to this group just to make sure on how HLA can continue to assist with the advocacy and just informing, the task force and other committees on how we can move things forward and collaborate with each other. So I'm really just looking forward to other ideas and innovative ideas that we can continue to push forward. And I will go ahead and pass it to Lee Allen.
Thank you, Daisy. I'm a member of the board of the HLA and also chairing our brand new advocacy committee, which is why this meeting is interested in our perspective, because we obviously have the same objectives and want to make sure we're on the same paths and don't undo each other's message. So we want to be consistent. Sure. I think that's first. Secondly, important issue relates to advocacy is that every community in Pinellas County needs to realize that finding shelter for people is not only their responsibility, but eventually it's going to be their problem, and they may not have it today, but they will have it. And it's better to stop it before it gets to their community. And I guess that's why this committee is important. And I have a couple hours a week to spend too. And I'll pass it back to Vicky. You choose.
Don't worry, don't worry. All right. How about Ross Silvers?
Good morning, everyone. Ross Silvers, CoC board member and with PSTA, Pinellas CoC Transit Authority. I think that to help the CoC be able to have this committee to articulate a clear voice, where a voice needs to be heard on these issues in our community being in our county, in our state, etc., particularly from us. So that's kind of really what I'm looking at, and hope to be able to devote the time needed to help make this happen.
Thank you very much. All right. And let's see, we have Mr. Andy Francis.
Hi, my name is Andy Francis. I work for the Recovery Epicenter Foundation. We are a nonprofit based in Clearwater. You probably have heard of our respite center called the Catcher's Mitt in Clearwater. I do outreach mostly focused on the unsheltered community for the Recovery Epicenter Foundation. I was talking to a participant when we listed all the questions, so sorry if I missed one, but I'm really interested in this committee because as somebody who has lived experience as being a member of the unsheltered community, and then now especially directly working with the homeless population every day, I see how many of the obstacles that people run up against are systemic. And so I've never been a part of anything like this. I've never really been a witness to the political process or how the sausage gets made when it comes to laws. But I just know it's largely a disenfranchised population who, it's like their lives are dictated by these things that happen so out of their control. So I'm just here to kind of be a part of the process, to learn about how the process works, and hopefully kind of lend some experience and be a bit of a voice for the people who can't be for themselves. So thank you all for putting this together, and I will go ahead and popcorn it over to Susan Boylan.
Okay, so Suzanne is actually off camera today, but I'll go ahead and I will introduce Suzanne. She is our Senior Manager of Coordinated Entry at the Homeless Leadership Alliance of Pinellas. Suzanne oversees a lot of the collaborative work behind the scenes that goes into helping folks enter permanent housing here in our community. And she has messaged me to tell me she's very excited to hear about everybody being here and all of your reasons for being here, and is really looking forward to collaborating with each of you. Also, on behalf of Suzanne, I will go ahead and I will popcorn it to Miss Lottie Cuthbertson.
Is she
Lottie?
unmuted or?
Okay, we'll come back to you, Lottie. We'll give you a minute. In the meantime, Miss Teresa Jones.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Teresa Jones, as Victoria just mentioned. I'm actually just a concerned citizen, however, I formerly served as the City of St. Petersburg's manager for homeless and social services. I am a member of the COC's board of directors, and I'm actually not a member of this committee, I don't believe, but I'm here because I have been, I feel, a lifelong advocate on a number of issues. And so I'm here to observe and provide input as might be required. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And Lottie, it
I'm
looks
back.
like you're off mute. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. Good morning, and I apologize. I didn't click the OK for the recording. So that's what was going on. As she stated, my name is Lottie Cuthbertson. By profession, I am a registered nurse of about 36 years. My passion has always been the most vulnerable community. I have served in various capacities, working with individuals with great needs. That's been my true life work. I am a former member of the board of directors. I am a part of a few organizations that helps in a small way with the vulnerable community, but the homeless is dear to my heart because I haven't lived it myself, but doing my career work through the hospitals and Veterans Administration, I've encountered a lot of people, and personally, I've encountered a lot of people that I had to help navigate through the system, and it was very hard for them. And this mission is very heartfelt for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lottie. All right, Mr. Roland Johnson.
Yes, my name is Roland Johnson. I was invited by Kathleen Beckman. I'm a member of the Uncommon Touch Ministry, which is a nonprofit, a local nonprofit in the Clearwater area. And we serve the homeless on 2 Saturdays of the month. And my, I guess, interest is we're in a location now and we need a new location. And there are 5 other nonprofits that serve out of the same location on different days. So I'm interested in listening and learning, and also I don't know how this fits into this group, but we need a new location for those 5 people or those 5 organizations. So I'm just trying to listen and learn and see if there's anything there to possibly give us some direction, or maybe somebody knows somebody that has some space or something like that. But I'm also definitely an advocate for the homeless, and I'm gonna say I may have maybe 3 hours a week that I could contribute to the cause.
Yes. Thank you, Roland.
That's
Are we
it.
all good, Victoria? Is that everybody?
That is not. Okay, so
Oh.
let's see. Kim, I'm so sorry, Kim. Is it Trainer? Okay.
I like a train. So my name is Kim Trainer, and I am one of the supervisors under the homeless social work program with Bay Pines VA. I cover the Veteran Justice Outreach Program, and we have many of the veterans that are justice involved and homeless. I'm covering for Blossom Capper, who is also a homeless supervisor. So I'm just here to be a backup and to help out. But homelessness is our need for our veterans.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for being here. All right, Cassie.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Cassie Brewer. I am the Awareness Advocacy Liaison for SELA Freedom. Our mission is bringing light into the darkness of sex trafficking. I have been with SELA for 2 years now. I recently worked in Washington, D.C. For 3 senators and was also a liaison across working both aisles while I was there on a lot of different issues. My passion, I guess, is, just what speaks to my heart the most, in bringing light to this topic is that the majority of the victims start out between 12 to 15 years of age. And at that point, they are on the pulse of homelessness and are lured into trafficking. And then we take them at 18 years of age because there's really no programs for 18 and on for adults. And at that point too, is a possibility, a high possibility of homelessness as well. Even if they go through other programs, once they get out, where are they going? And then they get back into the life. So with that being said, yeah, I got the invitation through the email. I'm not part of this board. I'm interested. I have active ears and an open heart and mind. If you would like to give me the opportunity, I would love to help. Possibly 3 to 5 hours a week. I think I could do that. And again, thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing what this abreast. Thanks.
Thank you.
I was muted there. We have just a couple more.
Okay.
Mr. Chuck Lane.
Oh, Chuck's on.
Good morning. Apologize for being late. I just signed on a few minutes ago. I'm the Assistant Director of the Economic Development Housing Department. I oversee our community development and affordable housing programs. We manage CDBG funding through my office, and that's, we deal a lot with homelessness prevention. With those CDBG funds. My schedule, I'm not sure that I can actually be part of the advocacy committee. What I want to do is I want to be a resource. I'm happy to help in any way I can. I wanted to join the meeting, albeit late, because I support these things, and I want to be part of it to the extent I can. So, if you have any questions for me, happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank you,
very
Chuck.
much. And then I think we have one more introduction, and that is Mr. Aaron Swift.
Oh, good.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. And sorry, I was a couple minutes late myself. My name is Aaron Swift. I'm a local attorney. I'm also the vice chair of the HLA COC. And prior to that, I was the vice president of Alpha House, one of our local providers. I have lived experience. I was homeless in this county from the ages of 2 to 6, 30 plus years ago, and then for many years in Pennsylvania. My passion is born from that experience. I give a lot of time and effort in this space. I am the chair of the Communications and PR Committee for the HLA. And so we have convergent goals. My goal for that committee is to educate with communications and PR. Then we have an advocacy committee, which is to convince. So I want to make sure that we are and remain aligned between education, resources, outreach, and then advocacy. I probably can't give a lot of time to this specific committee because I'll be working on my own committee as they overlap, and I want to be a liaison between the two. Thank you all. Incredibly happy to see everyone here and the stakeholders, and looking forward to the work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is wonderful. Okay. Yeah, with that in mind, I think that is everybody. So I'm going to pull the agenda back up. We are a little bit behind time, but that's okay. I think we can get through some of this stuff pretty quickly.
Yeah, thank you. We are a little behind time, and as a former high school English teacher who lived her life on, you can only go to the bathroom during 4th hour. It's all about, keeping track of time and respecting your schedules. However, I thought it was important with the first meeting, especially, to go through those introductions and know who we're starting with. And if this committee doesn't, isn't what you really need, then that's fine. But In future meetings, we'll just have new people introduce themselves and go from there. We can't allow this much time for every other meeting. But again, I appreciate you being here. I think the expectations are as we go forward, that the agendas will go out, adequately ahead of time, and that you'll take a moment to read through the attachments so that we're not, spending a whole lot of time on attachments, but just focused questions and answers. So yeah, we're quite a bit behind. So Victoria sent through the establishing the CoC Advocacy Committee. And, we've got an overview here on page 2 of what the CoC does. And then if you flip to the bottom about the Advocacy Committee, the only comment I had to make about this one was this committee will develop an annual HLA advocacy agenda to be approved by the board, advocate on behalf of the Pinellas CoC, and address any advocacy issues that may come up throughout the year. All that's fine, except for, this develop an annual HLA advocacy agenda. I mean, we can have goals and best practices, but as far as understanding what issues come up throughout the year, it's not like we're going to have a big heads up with that. So we may want to look at, that wording. Does anybody have any comments on anything on page 2? All good? Okay. On page 3, we've got that committee membership. Each committee will set its number and recruit members from the Continuum and larger community. So, and the next sentence is each committee will set its, or each committee members must be a member of the Continuum of Care. So for those newer people, Roland and I think, I took some notes, but maybe Cassie, if you decide you want to join, it's a nominal fee to be a community member. I think it's $10 or $25 a year. The decision making, we've got, we're only going to be giving guidance to the CoC general membership. We would not have decision-making authority, but certainly we'd make a decision to make recommendations. And there's a sentence here, decision-making requires live conversation, active participation from all parties. I'm thinking that that's perfectly fine and reasonable. And the last page ties into quorum and whether we want to have our meetings live or hybrid and how frequently. We have responsibilities about selecting chairs and co-chairs and secretaries. I think we can go through that. Maybe you all can think about this and we can do that at our next meeting. And then anybody with their hands up, because I'm going kind of fast because of time. Anybody with their hands up, Victoria? We all good?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay, no hands. Okay, good. Then let's just talk briefly about meeting frequency. I think, I'm going to propose quarterly and then additional meetings as needed. And I think right now we need certainly them a lot more frequently because we're setting up the committee, getting our footing, establishing our modes of operation, setting some priorities. I liked, I think it was Anne Marie's suggestion of maybe getting one of our lobbyists in to really talk about what they see on the horizon or best practices about that. So anyway, we might want to do that and I'd like to have meetings, I think, like maybe every other week until, as we think that this anti-capping legislation is going to be started by Sheriff Galtieri and law enforcement August 1st rather than October 1st, barring some Supreme Court decision that should come out in the next few days or next week.
Actually,
But
I literally just got a text from my husband. It's out. Haven't read it, but it's out now. I just got a text.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. All right. Any comments about quarterly meetings, but more frequent as we are getting our footing and building? And then also I would suggest virtual and 2 hours as we start. Any feedback on that? as we plan? Teresa's got one.
I only raised my hand because I want to express some concern and caution related to this idea of quorum. We're experiencing severe issues with quorums, particularly with some of the other committees. I'm on the DEI committee, and quorum has been an issue for the last, and I may misquote on this, but for at least the last year, if not the last 2 years. So, I'm not certain what the numbers are for the number of members for this committee, but whether it's been virtual, hybrid, or in person, it has been an ongoing issue. So I just throw that out there for consideration.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with you and have been, certainly experienced that. I'm planning to propose that we change quorum for committees because quorum as defined does not have to be 50% plus one. It can be whatever we choose it to be. And I think especially for committees, we need to reduce it to actually get work done. So I'll follow up on that. Teresa, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Any other comments about Zooms, 2 hours, and quarterly? Aaron's got his hand up.
I just read the quick synopsis. They upheld that law, so there's no chance that the anti-camping law here would be ruled unconstitutional.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so we're going forward with it. Good to know. I mean, it's good that it's not hanging out there, right? It's good that we know.
That's right.
All right. So are we good with that feedback about, all right, good. All right, then we're good to go on to the anti-camping law with Daisy and some of the specifics. Aaron, you want to lower your hand there just so that we don't get confused? Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Just wanted to give everybody a quick overview of what we've been doing with our anti-camping task force. I know that some of the members here have been present with those anti-camping groups that we've been having, the anti-camping law task force groups that we've been having. So a lot of those conversations have been trying to come up with a unified voice as to how everybody within the county is going to tackle this situation, making sure that we're all on the same page. I think this group is really going to help determine how we're advocating for this, how are we going to pretty much give the same information out and the same kind of theme of what we're doing as a system. With the last meeting that we had, I think we've had about 3 task force meetings already. The last meeting that we had, it was mostly about system change. And I know somebody mentioned how do we work with the system and how do we improve it to help our homeless neighbors. So one of those conversations has been around incorporating the sheriff's department with outreach and how we're going to improve that communication, how we're going to motivate our houseless neighbors into shelter or housing programs. So having a unified voice when it comes to that. We did propose a flyer that's still in the works. I believe it's almost completed. It's in the final draft stages, which we'll probably have a conversation with our outreach team when they start talking to our homeless neighbors of where we can get help. There is assistance, there is help for them. Where can you go? Is there shelter opportunities? Is there housing opportunities? I know that there is very limited units out there, but we can still work with landlords and hopefully get some more people housed and off the streets. So that's been some of those conversations. Because of that task force, one of the things that came up was also reintegrating this idea of the street outreach committee. And that's really important when it comes, especially to this anti-camping bill, because we want to make sure that our street outreach is working closely with our sheriff's department outreach team as well. We don't want it to be where they feel threatened that they're going to be incarcerated because they're sleeping on the street. It has to be a collaborative effort, between us and the sheriff's department. We're all trying to work for the same cause. So educating street outreach, making sure that they understand what the options are. Is there shelter availability, that we're connecting with 211, that we're connecting with coordinated entry to make sure that we're giving the best resources and most up-to-date resources for our clients. So that's something that we're going to be talking about on Monday with our street outreach committee, and also making sure that we have standards of what does that flow look like if you encounter somebody on the street? What is the option? What is the information we're giving them? Where are they going? How are we connecting them to services? So having that really outlined is going to be really helpful. And I think with this committee, giving that information out is going to help us inform everybody else that we're working with. We're also working with our lived experience advocacy committee. There were some surveys that were sent out. There was a lot of concern about not wanting to go into shelter, and we really want to pinpoint what those concerns are. Any feedback that we can get from our lived experience committee would be great to bring back to our shelters and also to this group and possibly to other groups to ensure that we improve on those items so that our neighbors feel comfortable going into a shelter and feel safe going into a shelter. So those are some of the things that we've been working on as far as the anti-camping law and our task force meetings. And so a lot of great things have come out of that because there is a lot of collaboration between us, and other committees have been coming up as well to really work towards finding a solution to this problem and something that's going to work well long term. So that's just kind of like a quick update of what we've been working on. And I think I saw Teresa's hand up. Did you have a question, Teresa?
Well, I had a comment, and I lowered my hand because I'm not certain that this is the appropriate time, but I mean, there are individuals who are simply not appropriate for the shelters that we have. And I'm speaking about individuals with health conditions that don't allow them to enter the shelters that we currently have, whether that's mobility issues, health issues, because of their age, etc. And then there's others that have, criminal backgrounds that prohibit them to even go to places like Safe Harbor. So, I'm just throwing it out there that there are some folks that simply will not be appropriate for shelter at all. So I'm not certain how we're going to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that those are some of the conversations that we've been having as well, is where are families, youth, elderly going to go for shelter. So those are some of the conversations that we've been having and trying to find solutions as well with that. Any other questions? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, staying on I feel so rushed, and I don't like to feel rushed. And so, again, our future meetings will be a little longer. I want to say thank you for you all attending, and such a diverse group, especially the special, populations, whether it's elderly or human trafficking, or as Teresa mentioned, people that are more of a challenge to be placed into shelter. I have attached to the agenda, I had asked Victoria to include this Faith in Florida presentation that Nick Carey did with our Lived Experience Advisory Committee. And it's just the PowerPoint. It's real brief. And, the reason I asked for it to be attached is that it's a lot more about being positive, not being combative in our advocacy. And I strongly feel that, we need to be advocates in a measured, methodical, intentional, intelligent way. As a former English teacher, I spent about 3 days with my sophomores each January-ish, February-ish on Martin Luther King's Letter from a Birmingham Jail. If you've never read it, I would suggest you read it. But he talks about civic action and civil disobedience. And he's, there are different stages to it. And I just want to mention these, and I would encourage you to read this, but you've got to collect the facts and have accurate data as we go forward with whatever advocacy we are asking about, whether it's shelter, special populations, youth, whatever. We have to understand, is there some sort of an injustice or need there? And obviously we have, significant needs. And then negotiate, have that ask. What are we asking of whom and what's reasonable? And then if we don't see enough positive change or action, if we don't have the budget allocations that we're asking for, resources that we're asking for, things like that, then this next stage, is self-purification, which sounds like what? And all that means is that you understand in your soul that you are going to be able to take like the slings and arrows and not fight back. And this is where this peaceful demonstration, and you can remember all those photos of people being sprayed with water hoses and arrested. It's like you're not there to fight back, you're there to draw attention to the problem. And what's the end result of that? It's those are the direct actions that lead back to negotiation in good faith. And so it's positive, persistent pressure. And so I think, I just wanted to be clear that, that's what I see as our advocacy, is making sure we have facts. And as we've learned in the task force group, sometimes it's difficult to get hard and fast data on how many people were in shelters last night, how many available shelter beds do we have, and those are special population shelter beds, so they really don't, so it is a little complex and nuanced. A whole bunch of this is complex and nuanced, so we have to have some grace and patience as we work through that. And that's where I think the suggestion of bringing in our lobbyist on a Zoom call, to advise about those things is good. And also to include, the work and the findings of our task force as they're, pushing for more accurate data, more timely data, which you can imagine is a challenge. The Pinellas County Housing Compact. Well, first of all, I'll pause. Any comment or feedback on that? I know you all have way more expertise. So what do you think about kind of the outlook of our advocacy going forward? Any hands or any? I've got my view. I can't see
Card
hands
has his hand up.
Okay, Sam.
Yeah, thanks. Kathleen, I think the key is focus on advocacy. So I think thinking about, early in the process, identifying what issues we want to talk about, where the right focus for advocacy is, and then when we have advocacy opportunities, being focused. I think I appreciate you holding up the idea of being positive, but I think being fact-based, so that when we talk to the people we're trying to convince, they perceive us as trustworthy and knowledgeable. And that means indeed preparing ourselves emotionally for that conversation. One of the things that's always interesting talking to lawmakers is they have to know about a lot of different issues, which means they never have the degree of knowledge about any particular issue that specialists have. So often the questions they ask are ignorant in the neutral sense of the word, as well as sometimes in the negative sense of the word. And to be ready for that is really important, and to sort of have the right data. And then when we don't have the data that we would like to have, to be clear and not get distracted by what we don't have. and then to be concise and to the point with the messaging, because time is always precious, and it's nice to give the point briefly and then allow time and space for people to ask questions that can then let their interests dictate how the conversation goes, rather than saying what I think they should want to hear, which is not necessarily what they do want to hear.
Right. And as we meet with legislators or whoever decision makers, it's usually a team of like 2 or 3 and meet individually. And a lot of times, because of sunshine laws, especially at the municipal level, you have to meet individually. And it's always I think it's a good policy to have those kind of one-on-ones or 3-on-1s to allow for a deeper understanding. Yeah. Anne Marie, did you have your hand up? Oh, yeah, you do. Yeah.
I do, thank you. So I agree with everything that both you and Sam have said. The only other thing I would suggest is to meet with the legislators before we need them. And of course, we need them now, but to develop that relationship. So to identify or target a few legislators, again, whether it's at the municipal, county, or state level, and just meet with them. Once there is data, I love the flyer that's been created by the task force. I love how proactive they are. But this is the opportunity to actually talk to them, and determine if there is an ask. Be very targeted in what that ask would be. And if there isn't one, it's just to develop that relationship with those members of the CoC or the advocacy committee or the lived experience. Identify who the right people would be to go on those meetings. Have a leave behind piece that is just one recto
pager.
verso, one pager, front and back, with a story, a photo, some data, just to let them know who we are and what we represent and why we're doing this. So that when we do have a bigger ask, whether it's legislative policy or funding, they're like, oh yeah, Kathleen and Sam and Daisy came and I know them, and I know that they're good people doing good work, and I want to support what they're doing.
Good. Thank you. That's exactly, how I think we should operate. I mean, it's proven to work with other organizations, and I think it's just best practices. Yeah. One of those things, I don't see any more hands.
Hi, this is Lottie. Just to say, I agree with everything everyone is saying. And it's important, as they said in the whole, for us to speak the same language. If have 2 different groups talking to various organizations, we need to speak the same language and saying the same thing.
And I think that's where those one pagers and stuff help, that we'll all be on the same page as whoever we talk to. Yeah. The other thing I think we need to have is all of us, when we can figure out a way to share articles or data or ideas, we'll figure out the best way that we can do that free flowing. So if you've got a good idea or an article, we can, maybe just send it to Victoria and she can send it out as a batch email to everyone, like, hey, Sam Picard found this and wanted to make sure to share it to the group today or something. But along those lines, I think we should all be familiar with, not that it's our biggest tool, but this Pinellas County Advantage Pinellas Housing Compact. So this was signed by a number of municipalities in Pinellas County, and including St. Pete, Clearwater, Largo, Pinellas Park, Oldsmar, Gulfport, and Treasure Island. So mostly the entitlement communities, but a couple of others. It would be phenomenal if all 24 of our municipalities signed on to this. And not that it's some big, strong thing, but it's like, because it doesn't have firm measurables, but it's like, hey, we've all realized that housing is, a challenge and a need, and that we can use this as a tool. And right now it's in the hands of Forward Pinellas, our municipal planning organization, to put forth, develop the plan on how best to work with this plan and move the needle on housing. Because as much as we talk about street outreach and getting people into shelters and having appropriate shelters for different populations, the biggest challenge and the fact of the matter is we don't have an exit ramp to get them into housing, an adequate exit ramp to get them into housing, because we don't have enough housing to move them into. And so this always needs to be part of the conversation, even if it's, oh, by the way, thank you for supporting these shelters and getting people in safe places, and so they're not sleeping on the street. But the fact is, we don't, we need adequate housing, especially permanent supportive housing, and 60% and below AMI and stuff. So I wanted to make sure you had that document. It's not super easily accessible online, but I've asked Whit Blanton, the CEO of Forward Pinellas, to put it on their dashboard and website that talks about the housing plan. And so I'll follow up with him today and make sure, that was a few weeks ago, make sure he put it on there. Okay. Anything else? So we're kind of on schedule here. I need to hear from you all about your thoughts about what's been talked about today, and about a next meeting. If we can schedule a 2-hour meeting, maybe we can do a doodle poll. Victoria, you have access to the doodle polls to do that, right?
I do, yes.
Okay. To find out when we can do a next meeting for 2 hours on Zoom. And what would you like to see in particular at that next meeting that you think would be good to be super productive? Any feedback here? Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think, what is the issue that we want to advocate on? Is it this law? Is it that? Is it funding to address the law? Is it, what is the issue that we want to advocate? And then what is it that we are recommending to the board that we want to advocate on? And then how do we do that? Starting to get more targeted.
Yep. And I think with that decision that came down while we were meeting, so we do know that the law will be, going into effect here in October officially, although we please understand that the sheriff said he's going to start enacting that law like in August. And when I asked at the meeting, so you're talking about, ordinances or laws that are already on the books, that's what you're going to be using to start enacting things August 1st? And he said, yes. So that's what we're faced with.
The other thing
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. Excuse me.
Oh, no, you're fine. The other thing is that we have to understand that, all of our governmental agencies are in the tail endish of their budget process right now, because they usually have first and second readings at the end of August or September-ish for an October 1st, fiscal year. So if we are going to have an ask, how are we going to get our ducks in a row to understand what we want to ask for and where that money will directly go? Cassie?
Yes, I do have a question. So they're going to start incarcerating come August 1st. Is that correct? Or are they just trying to move to a different location?
Well, the conversation that I was engaged with Daisy, and Daisy, feel free to jump in, is that the sheriff met with law enforcement organizations from around the county, and they were going to target groups of 6 or more, not individuals, and that they were going to approach them and let them know that there was no overnight camping. I'm thinking these are in unincorporated areas or with law enforcement agencies that wanted help from the sheriff's department. And letting them know that safe harbor was an option. It sounded like to me, it's kind of what they do now, as in either move along or I'm going to transport you to safe harbor, or they may transport them to the jail. Daisy, you want to clarify how you heard that?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that the sheriff's department was saying is that their last resort is jailing. That is a very, very last resort. They said that they will try as many opportunities as they can to move them into a shelter, to talk to coordinated entry, to talk to outreach providers, shelter providers, to see how we can move the clients off the street. They are not going to be targeting groups of like fewer than 6. If it starts to look like a mini encampment, they're going to go and speak to them, say, hey, you have to move your stuff. If they're moving from one place to another, then they're okay with it. They just want to make sure that they're starting to have those conversations. And they also mentioned that if there's a particular client that refuses several attempts, then they'll have no choice but to do that. But I think this is where that outreach committee is going to be really important, is to have that outreach team and the sheriff's department really have that same conversation, right? And have the same message. This is what we need to do. This is how we need to move our clients off to make them get them to a safe place, so that doesn't have to happen. You don't have to go to jail. These are the other options. So we're trying to avoid that as much as possible. The sheriff department is trying to avoid it, but they're going to say if they just refuse to move, then they're going to have to take that particular action. So that's kind of like what they've been saying in those type of meetings that they've been having.
Because of course this, to have a force to enforce this costs money.
Yeah.
And then also to incarcerate costs money. So if you even looked at the cost of what this would be, and then what that costs if we turned it around and put it into a shelter or making room, that's a win-win, as opposed to this is just a cycle that's going to happen. It's not going to do anything but move them from one place to the next place, and then potential incarceration, which is very costly for the taxpayers.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is where, we as committees need to come up, like Anne Marie was saying, look for advocate for funding, advocate for housing programs, advocate for other programs that will move our clients into permanent housing or into housing, because that's the ultimate goal. This is just, I don't want to say a Band-Aid, but this is just a temporary fix to get our clients off the street. But the long-term issue or solution is housing. So how do we advocate for that? And how do we stay on the same page and have a unified voice for that? So I think that, having these meetings and having these groups will help us kind of move towards that and see what are our options within our county to do that.
Great.
Teresa, and then Anne Marie.
I was wondering, in y'all's discussions with the sheriff's office, did they mention any revisions to their policies at Safe Harbor regarding sex offenders, registered sex offenders, and predators?
No, not when I was there.
No.
Okay, because you know that if there's someone that's a registered sex offender, even if it was from an offense from decades and decades ago, they get 48 hours, and if they're registered as a sexual predator, they get 24 hours. So they can't even stay at Safe Harbor, and none of the other shelters will take them because they oftentimes have families and individuals at the same shelter. So they're going to be it's going to be a revolving door where they, and in all likelihood, they'll be placed in jail because there's nowhere
Mhm.
else for them to go. So I think that's a discussion that needs to be had with the sheriff's office, um, because those are the most likely ones that will end up being incarcerated. And we all know that those long-term, all of those instances of arrest just and oftentimes precludes them from getting permanent housing.
Right,
It's just a sad commentary.
right,
So I think that discussion needs to be
right.
had. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you bringing up that specific population, Teresa. I would be, as part of our data collection and finding the facts and having those, I'd want to know about how many people that might apply to. I, you know, I remember, yes, I think that's important to know that general number. Anne Marie?
I'm gonna have to jump off because it's
Okay,
11 o'clock,
okay,
but I just wanted to
okay.
say,
All right.
there's really great people on both the task force and the advocacy committee, but their roles are very different. And I just want to make sure that that's clear because,
Mhm.
the task force is dealing with like, how do we help these people, these
Mhm.
community members that are experiencing homelessness? And the advocacy committee is kind of working with the policymakers that are going to actually change
Mhm.
what they're doing or develop policies to
Mhm.
advocate for what the task force is trying to do. So I know
Mhm.
this is obvious, but we got really strong people on both committees. So, and I don't want to, there's going to need to be some overlap so that we know what the task force is doing so that we can truly advocate on behalf of the excellent work that they've already started. So I
Yeah,
just wanted to make
good
that
point.
point. And see you
Mhm.
on the next call. Thank you so much, Kathleen and the HLA for putting this group together. I appreciate it very much. Hope everybody has a great
Thank
week.
you, Emery. I'm so happy you're part of it. I really am. Thank you.
Me too.
Uh,
Yeah.
Lee,
Before Anne
for
Marie,
those of us who can stay on.
she
Yeah.
left. I was going to say,
Yeah.
if you hadn't picked a vice chair out, I would nominate Anne Marie, but she left before I could do that. She
Yeah,
had some great comments and questions. I strongly would like to see her as your vice chair.
that would be great. Mhm, mhm.
Now she's not
We
here, she
can,
can't deny taking it.
right, right. If you're absent, you get appointed. But we'll definitely have that at the next meeting. And so think about if you'd like to play more of a role, a secretary, a chair, a vice chair, anything like that with the advocacy committee. So we're gonna wrap up here. Victoria, you're gonna send out a doodle poll for the next meeting. It will be Zoom. It will be 2 hours. I will get with the task force group. I am part of that task force group as well. Figure out if they have any preliminary asks of an advocacy group. We'll try to gather some more data and we'll reach out to our lobbyist or a lobbyist with homeless, what are they called? Florida Home, I forget what the organization is that we're, but anyway, we'll reach out to that lobbyist and maybe invite that person if they're able to attend the next Zoom meeting. Am I missing anything else that people want for that next meeting? Any hands? I've got to go to two. Any hands? No? All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Yes, go ahead, Cassie.
Probably an expenditure, like how much this actually is costing or could cost a taxpayer to implement this. Because going to legislators and speaking to them, they're wanting to know how much this impact is going to be as far as a cost. And what and the scale would be, it costs way more to keep this going and way less to implement a resource and a plan and a solution. And so that I think we need to find as a figure or a base to work off of and try to find that solution there, that balance before we approach a legislator.
Right. Good point. Good point. I do know in the Tampa Bay Times article this week about this Tampa Hope over in Hillsborough, they quoted I think it's $26 a day for Catholic charities, which, Joe Pandolfino might want to weigh in on that. I know that there's certainly more cost, but it is less to shelter people than to put them in the jail, for sure.
And State Senator Nick DeSiglia is director of Hope America.
Right. That formerly Hope. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all. I hope you have a great weekend. Look forward to a doodle poll, and we'll get the next meeting on the calendar as soon as possible. Thank you very, very much for being here. Hope everybody has a weekend. Good.
Thank you.